In Memphis, nothing comes easy, and that's exactly how we like it. This is a city built on hustle, on heart, on grit. And at Carway, our rides are built the same way. Tough, reliable, ready for the grind. No games, no gimmicks, just Memphis-style service. Real, honest, and built on trust. Where grit meets grind, you meet your next ride. Carway, grit, grind, and Pink Beetles. In Memphis, we know a thing or two about resilience. From the grindhouse to the Delta, we protect what's ours. But when pests invade your home, it's time to fight back. Grade A Pest knows how to handle what crawls, flies, and bites. With local experience and guaranteed results.
I'm Reggie with Grade A Pest Control. We service the Memphis metro area. That also includes DeSoto and Fayette County as well.
Grade A Pest has the entire Mid-South covered. So if bugs and pests put you to the test, let Grade A solve your problem. From the heart of Tiger Nation, this is where the insiders talk. Real stories, real access, and the pulse of Memphis athletics. You're tuned on beat with BCM. Now, let's get to the show.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of On Beat with BCM here on the Bluff City Media Network. I am Memphis Tigers men's basketball beat reporter for Bluff City Media, Roman Cleary, and I'm joined as always by our football insider and executive editor of the University of Memphis student newspaper, the Daily Helmsman, Sam Shoemaker. And Sam, there's not much Memphis football news going on right now, but NFL free agency kicked off yesterday, as we're recording this 2 days ago, by the time you guys are watching or listening to this. And I'm fired up, man. I got to tell you, I'm fired up. I'm excited. The Pittsburgh Steelers are out here signing real football players that are relevant in this decade. They were drafted in this decade. You know, the 2018 Pro Bowlers are no more. I know Michael Pittman Jr. and Jamel Dean both have their flaws, and they were on the open market for a reason or available or what have you. But man, adding real players to positions of need instead of signing 35-year-olds, it's a true breath of fresh air, and I'm sure you're excited as well with the Titans signing Wan'Dale Robinson.
Oh, I'm certainly excited. I'm always have been, even before I knew the Titans were going to get him. Always been a Cam Ward believer, and I think Dayball in there as OC and Wan'Dale Robinson, and now it makes it so much easier to believe in what Cam Ward's going to be. But I don't know, maybe it's me trying to be a victim fan, but it's just hard to imagine a Titans quarterback being really good because I've just never seen it. Even when Tannehill was one of those guys, the offense wasn't good because of Tannehill, right? So that's hard for me to imagine. But on top of that, Roman, it is spring break. I think as both student journalists, it's been really awesome that it comes during this time because there's so much going on. And you were down traveling with the basketball team, and I just think this spring break timing has been awesome. So shout out to a week off school, Roman.
Yeah, no, indeed. Yeah. Shout out to free agency. Shout out to time off school, even though the grind for me is still far from over. And it's going to come to a pretty sudden halt at some point here in this American Conference tournament. But we first have to talk about how the Tigers punched their ticket to the conference tournament, because they went to New Orleans. I went to New Orleans and I watched this University of Memphis basketball team through all sorts of craziness that happened. in the 96-95 final in overtime, where both teams honestly deserve to lose at certain points. Just fast forwarding to the very end, you see Memphis leading this game 80-71 with 1:47 to go. And in basically any other situation, this game is over. But for those who know this Memphis team, and obviously we both know it very, very well, it's obviously never over till it's over. And the Tigers blew it yet again, even though this was easily their worst collapse or choking of a lead yet, for sure. They let up a 10-1 run to end regulation, and that run extends to 16-1 into overtime because the Tulane Green Wave also scored the first 6 points of that period. Rowan Brumbaugh goes off in this game for 31 against the Tigers, and he, of course, hit the game winner against Memphis in the first game at FedEx Forum back in February. But, man, for whatever reason, the Tigers just refused to lay down in this one. They fought their way back into it. They get the big and one from Aaron Bradshaw in the waning moments, and that kind of sets up the back and forth that we see for the rest of overtime. And it eventually comes down to 2 Quante Berry free throws. He sinks both of them in the face of a small but very loud Tulane crowd in that moment. You also get fantastic performances from Doug McDaniel and Tierno Silla. Silla really catapulted the big run that Memphis had at the start of the second half after trailing by 9 at the break. And Doug with some fantastic shot making towards the end of the regulation period of the second half. Barry, Silla, and McDaniel all combined for 39 points in the second half and, led the way into overtime along with Bradshaw as well. So very good offensive performance for Memphis in this one, and it's just enough to squeak out a victory over Tulane and get not just the 10 seed, not just the 9 seed, but the number 8 overall seed in the American Conference Tournament. We'll talk about that path and what it means for Memphis later on, but Memphis won, and that's better at this point.
Yeah, Roman, you said both these teams certainly deserve to lose at some point, but for whatever this Memphis season has been, this was a really fun game. And in a lot of senses, an impressive game, right? There were a lot of chances for Memphis to fold here, and they pulled it out. And, usually the conversation is last year when Memphis was winning a lot of close conference games, it was, man, these close conference games aren't good for them, but this is what good teams do. They pull it out. Obviously, this isn't a good Memphis team, but I'm sure it's nice. I think it's a breath of fresh air for this team to get their first dub in over a month. It's just, this game was fun to watch on top of that. And I don't know how many fun to watch Memphis basketball games I've seen that. Maybe I'm just saying that because I'm a basketball modernist and I like high scoring games and I like to see these games go. I like to see points being scored. But overall, Roman, it was Penny got a win on the road against Ron Hunter. How many of those have we seen? Not too many.
It's actually his second in a row.
Second in a row. Well, yeah. Maybe he's broken the streak, I guess, twice in a row, and that's certainly a good feeling. But I don't have too big of an opinion yet. Of course, the opinion will come on, man, what does Memphis do in this conference tournament? I'm not going to say the season is to say Memphis is back. This still isn't a very good team. But a win is a win, and I want to give credit where it's due. And I think Penny coached this game like it was the biggest game of his career, right? He's only playing look, he played Doug McDaniel 45 minutes. There's only 40 minutes in college games, right? And then, of course, the overtime gave him those extra 5. So everyone
played the entire game.
Yeah, he played the entire game. And you don't do that as a coach unless you just think, man, this guy has to be on the court for us to win. So that shows us exactly where Penny is. That shows us where a lot of this team is. And some of these guys still want to win. Some of these guys still are fighting, and that's fun to watch.
Yeah, no, it's their first win in precisely a calendar month.
Okay.
Their last win was over Charlotte on February 8th. And, of course, this win at Tulane for Memphis was on March 8th. So precisely a calendar month. February is a shorter month, obviously, so I don't know if it's exactly 30 or 31 days. But it is a calendar month there. And in that month, a lot of negativity occurred for this Memphis team, and it teetered them on the edge of whether they were going to make this conference tournament or not, as we have discussed ad nauseum over the last few weeks. And there were some scary hours that were in effect throughout this Memphis and Tulane game. There were multiple points, especially in the second half, where Tulane was leading, and then you go over to Birmingham, and East Carolina is leading UAB. And, of course, the scenario after everything was laid out, if UAB lost to ECU and Memphis lost at Tulane, that would have eliminated the Tigers altogether from the conference tournament and instead inserted East Carolina into that final slot because, of course, the Pirates embarrassingly defeated the Tigers just over a week ago now. So Memphis' season was on the edge of winning of losing or ending multiple times throughout Sunday. And I mean, East Carolina was up late, and this is pure speculation on my part, but UAB actually made a pretty big run towards the end of that ECU game to win over the Pirates there. But the UAB game against ECU started an hour after the Memphis-Tulane game. So even with the overtime, Memphis and Tulane ended before the East Carolina game finished. So, again, this is pure speculation on my part, but I think it's very possible that East Carolina might have gotten word towards the end of their game that Memphis had won, and they were done regardless of what happened. And that could have very much deflated them for the rest of that one. So if Tulane finishes the job and actually beats Memphis, who knows what happens in that East Carolina game. Again, just pure speculation on my part, but that's certainly
I don't think that's ridiculous. I don't think
it's certainly something to think about.
Right. I'm catching what you're throwing.
Yeah.
So
because like
nice
ECU was up by as many as 6 pretty late there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we know what ECU can do. We know how they can run the score up. So it wasn't ridiculous at any point on game was played Sunday, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't ridiculous for the majority of Sunday to think, man, Memphis might not make this tournament. and here we are. And there's so much to talk about getting into that.
Yeah. And I guess that's our cue to move on, because Memphis is indeed in the American Conference tournament. Now, they are far from guaranteed to win it. In fact, it's quite probable that they do not win it, and they don't even make the final. You've seen it all a lot of times at this point, but we'll reiterate it again. Memphis has got to win 5 games in 5 days in Birmingham inside Legacy Arena to ultimately come out on top in this American Conference tournament and subsequently claim the league's automatic and likely only NCAA tournament bid. Not even South Florida, the league's regular season champion, has a good enough at-large resume to get this done. So there's no scenario where USF's already in anyway, so they're not going to try. No, they're fighting for the tournament too, as is Wichita State, the 2 seed, as is Tulsa, the 3 seed. All 10 teams in this tournament, regardless of how they did in the regular season, they are all fighting for this one spot from the American to make the conference tournament. No team is an at-large caliber team here. So that makes this proposition even more improbable for Memphis than it likely was already going to be there.
Right, Roman. So you talk about this as certainly only a one big league. I saw Rothstein posted the odds earlier via FanDuel Sportsbook, which I know is certainly one of the bigger topics of conversation for the American tournament winner odds. South Florida is minus 125, the favorite. Tulsa is plus 320. Wichita State plus 370. UAB 1,700 and Memphis 3,500.
Yeah,
Memphis as the 10 seed is the 5th best odd to win this tournament. Now, so Roman, quick story time. To start off my spring break over the weekend, I was in Panama City Beach with some buddies. And of course, I go to the University of Memphis. A lot of my buddies do. And then I ran into some kids from Alabama and they said, do you go to the University of Memphis? Yada, yada. And they said, man, every time I'm on FanDuel, I would always bet Memphis because I always thought Memphis would just win. They were always favored too much. So I think based off that one interaction I've garnered that people think Memphis is better than they are because the Memphis name. Memphis still has that respect that they've earned from being one of the better teams in this conference for years on end, right? So that's my long-winded way of saying Memphis, although the 10th seed, does not have the 10th best odds to win this tournament now, or at least according to public perception. So Roman, I don't know if I want to get your read on this. Do you think Memphis is? Let's play the game. Do you think Memphis is the 5th best team in the conference? Because they haven't played like it. I don't think they are. But there's always that, man, this is the most expensive roster in the conference. This is Penny Hardaway. They can go on a run. There's always that feeling in the back of everyone's mind. And I think all season, that's why I would always bring up the odds. I think Memphis was given a couple of points on every spread because of what this team could be and not because what this team is.
Well, Memphis has looked like one of the worst teams in the American for the past month, but I don't think they actually are in reality. That doesn't mean they're the best or even close to the best, because they're clearly not that either. I think this Memphis team in reality is one of the more talented teams in the American that is settling in the middle of the pack. I think that's what this Memphis team truly is at the end of the day. If you just want to look at it as objectively as possible, they're actually, again, the 8th seed in the conference tournament, not the 10. That really matters. That doesn't really matter because you still got to win the 5 games in 5 days either way. Right. But where it does matter is how this path is laid out for Memphis. And I guess we'll take a look at this bracket now. As you can see, Memphis will play Tulane actually again on Wednesday to start the conference tournament. That's going to be Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. And this is where I think, Sam, it gets interesting, and why, if you check out my American Conference Tournament preview / prediction story that I put out on Monday morning after the Tulane game, I actually have Memphis advancing all the way to the semifinals here against South Florida. And it's simply because of how this path is laid out. This is easily the best possible path Memphis could have gotten for this tournament. It's really not even close. You got Tulane on Wednesday, and I just don't think this Tulane team is that good, including the Memphis game. They've now lost 4 in a row. They are just not in good form whatsoever. Ron Hunter is currently on the hot seat over there in New Orleans because of how lofty his contract is. I don't think this is his last season, but he's in hot water over there right now. Tulane just doesn't really look good at all. And I think Memphis certainly found a lot of the answers to the zone defense that really tripped him up the first time around on Sunday. So I ultimately think Memphis walks away with victory in that Tulane game. But I think this Tulane game is a lot scarier than what would come next for Memphis, and that is Charlotte on Thursday. They're the 5 seed. And I'll be honest, man,
Charlotte's really bad.
I don't know how this Charlotte team has won as many games as it has. I really don't. They had kind of a hot streak towards the beginning of conference play. But don't get it twisted. This Charlotte team is not talented. They are not good. They got housed at 23 at Memphis by 23 for a reason. They are, at least in terms of talent, to me, on the UTSA, Rice, and East Carolina level. That's where I think the Charlotte team is. And more importantly, Charlotte plays at an incredibly slow pace. And historically, Penny Hardaway teams shred teams that play slow. You saw it with Virginia. You've seen it with a few other schools. You got to be able to play fast if you want to beat Memphis. So a team like Charlotte, from that perspective and a talent perspective, is at a major disadvantage here. So if Memphis beats Tulane and gets to Thursday, I think the Charlotte win is almost a lock. So that takes you to Friday with UAB. And this one is obviously a lot more than a toss-up. But my rationale for Memphis ultimately winning this game against UAB is, again, I think they're playing a lot harder than they were in the second matchup. I think they are in much better form offensively, and they've seemed to, find some answers to attacking zone defense that they simply did not have even a few weeks ago. And UAB just isn't really good defensively beyond that. And if Memphis can turn that UAB game into a track meet, like I really think they can and they have the ability to do, I don't really think the Blazers are going to be able to keep up, especially considering how poor of a three-point shooting team they are. Now, of course, UAB has a massive advantage down low. They're a much better rebounding team than Memphis. Memphis is a really bad rebounding team nationally. UAB is a really good rebounding team nationally. So that's where the Blazers can get Memphis, and that's where they largely got them in the second matchup. And in some ways in the first matchup as well, if not for Sincere Parker's 40-point bomb outing there. I think this performance would be a lot more balanced if Memphis is able to get here to Friday. And I do think that the Tigers would be a slight favorite in my book, at least, to win this UAB game. And if that happens, that takes you to the semifinals in South Florida, like I projected in my prediction. That's my official prediction. Memphis makes it to the semifinals of this tournament. Now, they're just not going to get past South Florida. That is just simply not going to happen, barring unforeseen circumstances. But that's just the way that I see this path and this potential bracket laid out for Memphis there. I do think ultimately there is potential for a run to be made here, even if it's not all the way to the title game.
Roman, you're giving people hope. And that's why these conference tournaments, that's why March is so much fun, because you lay this out. And I talked about how Memphis is the fifth best odds, and they just haven't been that good all season. And I think you laid it out really nicely as to why. All it takes is winning one game, because all you can do is win one game at a time, right? And I'm looking at these odds. Memphis is 3.5-point favorite over Tulane on Wednesday. They'll definitely be a favorite over Charlotte on Thursday. I think in that UAB game, especially if Memphis rolls in those first two, it could be around a pick 'em, or maybe a Memphis favorite by a point or two. And then of course you get to that South Florida game. I think we all know what's going to happen there. But a long story short, you're giving people hope, and I don't think it's ridiculous. Now, Memphis it's nearly a pick 'em against Tulane, right? So Memphis could get bounced first round. Boom, we're off to the offseason that a lot of Tigers fans have been waiting for, right? I think it would be kind of fitting. It would be kind of funny if Memphis did go on a mini run and then lost to South Florida. I think that would be good for the city, but a lot of people would be pretty upset where was this all season? But yeah, I think you laid it out nicely. It's certainly a possibility that Memphis could reach the semifinals. And then look, Roman, if you reach the semifinals in anything, you've already won 3 games. You just got a couple more left. Now, is it likely Memphis wins this thing? Not at all. Not even close. But I think the way you laid it out, there's something to watch for, right? You're not going into this thinking you're gonna lose every game you play, right? And that's why there's still some fun to play, but that's why we play the games.
Yeah, Memphis is extremely lucky that it ended up on this side of the bracket and not the other side.
Certainly.
Where
if they were the 10 seed here instead of Temple, oof.
Yeah, like instead of getting Tulane in the first round, if you were the 10 seed, you'd have to get FAU, and FAU is incredibly injured right now, and they're extremely cold. So Memphis would likely win that game. But after that, it's kind of a wrap, because I don't think they would beat North Texas. North Texas is really hot right now, and they've really kind of solidified the defensive identity that they had under Ross Hodge previously. Obviously not to that level, but yeah. North Texas was really, really bad earlier this season, and now I think they're actually a really solid team that can do some damage in this tournament. I do not think Memphis would get past North Texas on a neutral floor, and then you get to, if Memphis somehow won that game, let's just say they would have for some reason, then it's Tulsa in the quarterfinals, and that's a wrap. You're not getting past Tulsa. I actually have Tulsa winning the entire tournament. The final I have is Tulsa USF, and Tulsa wins because USF's already beaten them twice in the regular season. It's really hard to beat a good team 3 times in 1 year, and Tulsa's just a better team defensively, and I think that would kind of come through in the end with a title on the line there. Tulsa would also have a bit more rhythm, having played the past 2 games instead of just 1, and they would be coming off of a win over Wichita State as well. So perhaps a lot of confidence heading into that game. But either way, I have Tulsa winning this tournament. And yeah, if Memphis were on the bottom side of this bracket instead of the top here, there would not be near as much potential for a semifinal run as there otherwise would be there.
Yeah, I think it's fun that there's still a little bit of room for optimism. But two quick questions. First, you talk about health. I guess just if you can give a quick Memphis injury report, health report, how these guys feeling, because that could be an advantage Memphis has is their injury luck this far. And then secondly, Roman, of course the new implementation of the tournament. Do you think there's any advantage that you get from being one of the lower seeds? Obviously not the 8 seed, right? But do you think, let's say South Florida starts in the semifinals, they're coming in cold in a Memphis or someone like that, Memphis or even UAB, who's had an extra game or 2 or 3 to prepare? Do you think that's going to give them an advantage over a South Florida team that hadn't played in a couple weeks? Or I guess a week?
No, because like if you are in a spot where you have to win 5 games in 5 days, that's just not a spot you want to be in. There's no advantage that comes along with that.
But how about if we get to that point? Like Memphis, let's say Memphis makes the semis. Do you think the momentum Memphis could have over South Florida would give them an advantage?
I mean, maybe in terms of like maybe helping them stay competitive in the game. But at the end of the day, South Florida is just a better basketball team in essentially all areas. Besides maybe like 3-point defense. Memphis is particularly good in that area for some reason. But besides 3-point defense, South Florida is basically better in every area.
Yeah.
And, momentum that Memphis would have heading into that game wouldn't really change that. I mean, this new conference tournament format, this WCC tournament-like format that the American has implemented here, where only 10 of the 13 teams make it and the top 2 seeds go straight to the semifinals. It was designed for the league to get their best teams into the tournament, in the NCAA tournament, that is. That's why this exists. And it's a system that was honestly tailor-made for Memphis, and Memphis just failed to capitalize. So I don't really think there's like an advantage that comes along with being the 8 seed and having to play as many days and many games in as many days as Memphis is going to have to here to win this whole thing. You want to be the lowest seed possible, or the highest seed, or however you would format that. Like
certainly,
if you can be a top 2 seed or a top 4 seed, you want to be there. Now, in terms of like momentum, like 3 days in 3 days versus 2 games in 2 days. I mean, there's a difference there, but there's not much. So if you're like 3 or 4 instead of 1 or 2 and you're having to play the quarterfinals, that's not the biggest deal in the world, I guess. And again, I have a quarterfinal team in Tulsa winning the whole tournament, which goes to show you don't necessarily need one of the top 2 seeds to win this thing. And actually, in the background I was doing for my tournament preview and prediction, only 5 number 1 seeds have won the tournament in its 12-year history. And like 7 teams seeded 4 or higher have made it to the championship game. And 2 of those teams, the 2015-16 UConn team and the 23-24 UAB team, have won the tournament. So it's not completely impossible if you're seeded outside of the top 2 or top 3 to win it. It's not impossible to pull it off, but you just don't want to be the 8 seed and playing 5 games in 5 days. That's certainly just not favorable in any way. And as far as the injuries go, we saw both Sincere Parker and Julius Thedford miss the entire second half and overtime period at Tulane on Sunday. Parker is still dealing with that ankle injury that he actually suffered all the way back on January 21st at Tulsa. He's been nursing and kind of playing through that this entire time, according to Penny. And according to what he told Dave Voloshin on postgame radio after the game, it apparently just wasn't ever able to get loose enough, that ankle, to where he was going to be able to, properly play and function on the court. He spent the entire second half on the exercise training bike, probably trying to get it loose, trying to get his body and blood flowing, but it clearly just wasn't enough. And Thedford's been playing on a bad knee pretty much since his freshman season at Western Kentucky, as you likely know. And it was another situation where I guess he just wasn't close enough to 100% after, doing some good things in the first half, Penny ultimately decided to shorten that rotation and play healthier guys than Thedford and Parker, which definitely played to Memphis's benefit down the stretch. But still, those are two guys that if you're going to make a run here, and they are likely going to need to be involved. They're going to need to be a factor because they're two of the best players on this team. So their statuses are certainly, I guess you would consider up in the air heading into the tournament. We'll see, how they are able to do, especially in a, one, not even like less than a day turnaround environment. And as far as Ashton Hardaway goes, he's obviously now missed 4 games in a row with a calf contusion. No real sign on whether he's going to return at all or when he's going to return. That injury has just been kind of lingering there for about a week or two now.
Yeah, I'll say if Memphis is going to even have a chance to make a run here and win 5 games in 5 days, it's going to kind of start off with the off the court stuff. You're going to need your guys, right? Because outside of Thedford and Parker, you had 6 other guys playing this all-out slobber knocker against Tulane, right? And you're not going to win 5 games in 5 days with only 6 guys. You're going to need your 10-man rotation healthy.
Yeah, for sure. But regardless of what happens in Birmingham in this conference tournament, there is little indication on my end that it's going to affect Penny Hardaway's job security moving forward. I'm pretty confident that he will ultimately return for a 9th season at this rate. I mean, anything can happen, and it could certainly still open up, but I'm just telling you the likely scenario is that he is back for another season regardless of what happens here in Birmingham. And another reason for that is because Memphis has already fired a basketball coach. Alex Simmons, we talked about her a lot last week, and we've been kind of alluding to this happening for a little while now. And it has finally come to pass. It has finally come to fruition. We'll talk about that and more after this break. We will return here on Beat with BCM.
Tired of the same old fast food? The soggy fries, the frozen flavors, the meals that never quite hit right. Head over to Waldo's Chicken and Beer, where everything starts fresh and flavor comes first. Our chicken is fried in rich beef tallow for that bold, old-school crunch you can actually taste. And don't skip the premium homemade southern sides, fresh greens, hearty white beans, and creamy mac and cheese made to complete the meal. Bring your whole family. There's plenty of space to relax, plus a game room the kids will love. Catch the game on big screens, grab a drink at the full bar, and enjoy happy hour specials every day from 3 to 6, all day on Tuesday and Sunday. Waldo's Chicken and Beer. Real food, real flavor, made from scratch.
I have been more on the side of we need to keep Pip. I have been more on the side of we need to keep him because as far as like having those vets, I feel like Pip's that guy. And he's a guy that we developed. Mm-hmm. He's been through the ropes. Like if anyone can give young guys struggling to find playing time, to find a role, it's Scottie Pippen Jr. Like he's kind of one of us. Like I don't think we need to let him go. So I guess in a way, I'll just kind of answer my own like complaint. Really, it's like we kind of have Scottie Pippen Jr. who is that guy and does still perform, does still play, has played G League, has worked his way through the ranks. If anyone has a chip on his shoulder, it's that guy with the name on the back of his jersey for sure. You know?
Which is why I'm not big on we got to go get Darius Acuff or even Christian Anderson, who I also like from Texas Tech, or LeBaird Philon from Alabama. Like I'm okay with platooning a point guard of Scottie Pippen Jr., Ty Jerome, and Cam Spencer and just seeing what you have. Let's go fill some of those other needs. And I'm okay with keeping Scottie Pippen Jr. He's one of our enforcers. He's tough. He plays super hard. He's already shown what he can do.
Tune into the Two Buck Sports Show with Rusty Witten and Drew Gann, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. I will call out the argument that Penny Hardaway has had 7 great seasons with the University of Memphis and had 1 bad season. Number one, on its face, he's not had 7 great seasons with the University of Memphis. He's had 1. Last year was a good season, and they still lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. What happened to the standards of Memphis Tiger fans that you're willing to say, like, not even have the conversation about Penny Hardaway's future at Memphis because he's Penny? Okay, great. He's Penny Hardaway. That's great. Like, yes. His impact will never be denied here in this city. But what happened to Memphis Tiger fans' standards of like where this is, like what this team is going to look like? I said this a few days ago. If you're willing to accept mediocrity, then continue to be on the Penny Hardaway train because that's what you've gotten from him. Tune in to Tigers Live with Francis Carlotta, live after every Memphis Tiger basketball game on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Some dreams don't just come true, they come with 4 paws. At Puppy Dreams, we match loving families with happy, healthy puppies. From playful companions to lifelong best friends, your perfect match is waiting. And with our professional grooming spa, your pup will look as amazing as they feel. Visit Puppy Dreams today and meet the one who's been waiting just for you.
We are back on Beat with BCM. Roman Cleary, Sam Shoemaker, joining you guys as always. Thank you all for tuning into the program this week. Of course, it's a different time slot than we are normally in because of the game with Memphis men's basketball in the conference tournament against Tulane tonight. So we thank you all for tuning in a bit earlier than normal. Now, men's team is still going on. Their season is still continuing, but that is not the case for this Memphis women's basketball team. But the offseason certainly kicked off with the biggest hammer of all. And it's something that both of us, especially you, Sam, have been alluding to for months now. I mean, we knew heading into the season that this was kind of going to be the final opportunity for Alex Simmons to get this thing right after how badly last season went. But it plummeted. It got even worse this year. They were last in the American, missed the conference tournament, off the court issues from several players as well. Just nothing good, nothing positive coming out of Alex Simmons' tenure. And Ed Scott in the athletic department decided to officially pull the plug and cut ties with an announcement on Monday morning. So, well, we talked about her a lot last week, and we've been giving her thoughts on her and this entire women's basketball program and its state throughout this season as well. But just what are your thoughts upon seeing that Alex Simmons has officially been fired here?
Yeah, this was, of course, expected, and this was also a long time coming. Before we went to break, you talked about, we've been talking about this for a while. We've been talking about this since November 3rd. What happened November 3rd? That was when Memphis lost to University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. The Pine Bluff team, who had gone 3-27 the year before. In one of those opening season games, it was the education day. They brought in thousands of local Memphis area kids, and they embarrassed themselves. Been working all off seasons for that, and then just the dreadful season continued all year. And Alex Simmons didn't take too much accountability. She took to a lot of deflecting, and now here we are. I think Alex Simmons is a good coach, or a coach who can be successful. She's done it before. She's had at least one good season over at Garner Webb. I think she just didn't entirely understand what came with this job. And actually, to that point, Nick New, the women's basketball beat writer, and then, of course, Shamaria for Bluff City Media, both who do a wonderful job of covering this team. When we're going to be honest, Roman, not many local media outlets other than Bluff City Media and the Daily Helmsman don't cover this team. right? They cover the crime surrounding this team. They cover the firing surrounding this team. There are 2 beat reporters at everything. So when it comes to that, Shamaria and Nick are going to be the 2 I trust. Now, Nick wrote a really nice column about this firing, talking about how in Memphis, respect is a 2-way street. You get out what you put in. And then Nick wrote, that was the fatal flaw for Alex Simmons during her time in the blue and gray. She didn't connect with the city and disrespected it on the way out. Now, what Nick is talking about in the disrespecting on the way out was this quote, Roman. We talked about it last week.
Yeah.
Alex Simmons said, Memphis is in her very last press conference as a Memphis Tiger head coach. After they won the final game of the season, she asked by media about her future in Memphis. And there was obviously a report from one of the third-party faceless journalists who inferred that Simmons was going to be fired. And then Simmons said, Memphis is a place that not many people wanted to come to, but Alex Simmons did. Memphis is not a place that many people want to stay, but Alex Simmons does. We can talk about all the problems with that statement, but that's entirely tone deaf. That's entirely disrespectful to a city that entirely, of course, Memphis can get behind winners. That's what Memphis does because it represents, I guess, it represents the hard work, right? And at the end of the day, for whatever you are, you could be the most annoying person of all time, right? There are a lot of really annoying coaches in college basketball who they win, so people like them. I think Hurley, over at UConn, his entire personality is like being difficult and hard to deal with. And I think he would say that, but he wins, so it doesn't matter, right? The story here is you're not winning. And then on top of that, you're disrespecting the city that you want to rally behind you. And that's just not going to happen. So look, this is the long-winded way of saying Simmons didn't understand what came with this job. Simmons had a lot of misconceptions of what this job is. Now, if you look at who she is as a coach and as a basketball talent, she won 2 national championships as a player at Tennessee. She played under Pat Summitt, right? She was on coaching staff at Ole Miss. She did really well for herself as a head coach at Gardner-Webb. She's had a lot of success. She knows what success looks like. She just didn't know what success looked like in Memphis. And that's okay. And now Ed Scott has a really, really big decision to make because Katrina Merriweather had this program on a nice run. Memphis women's basketball was finally on a nice run. You have all the regional talent that Merriweather tapped into that Simmons never could. But look, Roman, the thing that I'm sure you're going to hit on and that we always hit on is, look, as far as revenue sharing in the NIL era, Memphis football and Memphis basketball are always going to be 1 and 2. As of right now, Memphis women's basketball is number 3 in the revenue sharing. If things continue to go downhill, who knows how long that's going to be the case. And that's why Ed Scott really wants to nail this hire. Of course, every AD wants to nail the hire, right? But that's why this hire is so important, because you're in a regional hotbed of talent and you have the 3rd most money on campus. And that should add up to a couple of wins. And we didn't see that with Simmons, but and it led here after 3 seasons. So, Roman, what do you think about Simmons being gone?
On my way down to New Orleans, it's 5.5, 6 hour drive, give or take. And you have to do something to fill that time. And I was driving down on Saturday afternoon. And the Memphis women's basketball season finale against Wichita State happened to be, coming on around that time. And so I decided to tune into the radio broadcast because why not? And
shout out Tyler Springs.
Listen to the entire game, including pregame, postgame. Just listen to everything, including Alex Simmons' pregame radio interview with Tyler Springs, the women's basketball play-by-play announcer. And obviously what she said after the game, talking in third person like she's Kobe Bryant, things like that. That's obviously the money quote here that needs to be focused on, because that's just ridiculous in all sorts of ways that you described a second ago. But I thought this as well, what she said here was also quite asinine, to be honest with you. So Tyler asked her towards the top of the interview just her overall thoughts on the season not meeting expectations and, what she thought about that, like the season not living up to the standard. And what she told him was, quote, respectfully, That's an opinion of someone who hasn't built a program, end quote. And I just don't think there's a poor way to respond to that question than that. Like I said a second ago, like it shows a complete tone deaf perspective on her part, and it's just emblematic of what this entire tenure was for Alex Simmons. The most disheartening thing about Alex Simmons' time as the head coach of Memphis Tigers women's basketball was not even the on-court performance, as bad as it was. The most disheartening thing in my eye, especially as a journalist, is just her complete and total lack of accountability and her lack of willingness to properly and even respectfully absorb criticism. My experience was obviously limited because of how hectic things can get covering the men's team, but I had personal experience of my own, and I had accounts from other people who are a lot more involved in covering the women's basketball team, including yourself. Last season there was the huge issue of her flat out refusing to speak with home media at home games in the event that they lost. And that was sorted out this year. But even beyond that, you just saw repeated instances of Alex Simmons being defensive, snarky, and at times even flat out rude or disrespectful whenever she was criticized or challenged in any way by reporters. And this is, again, someone who has criticized the media for not covering her program enough in a positive manner. And I know how this is going to come off. It's going to come off as two journalists that are whining about the coach, not treating them properly or whatever. Like, I get that, but we also have to embrace reality here. And that at the end of the day, perhaps the biggest reason why Alex Simmons failed in this role is not even her on-court coaching prowess, because as we saw at Gardner-Webb, that wasn't exactly the issue. I mean, her whole tenure there as a whole wasn't amazing, but that last season was as good as you could probably get over there. I mean, going 29-4, going to the tournament at a place like Gardner-Webb. I mean, that's just phenomenal.
It's impressive, definitely.
It's just very impressive. It's great. So clearly she can coach and she can build a winning team, but she just did not have the personality to properly absorb everything that this job is and, properly be able to handle the heightened expectations that this program now has when you combine what Katrina Merriweather was able to do, in her short time here and the heavily increased financial investment that Memphis is making in this women's basketball program, again, with it being third in revenue sharing on campus. Look, women's basketball is changing very much right now. It's becoming a much bigger part of the American sports cultural fabric than it has been in the past. And Memphis, along with most of the country, is recognizing this, and it recognizes that there needs to be a bigger investment there, especially in a city like Memphis, where it's just a basketball city in general. And that goes for both men and women. The women's basketball high school scene in Memphis, it's a very talented field right now. There's a lot of talented teams and subsequently a lot of talented players that for some reason were not wearing the University of Memphis uniform, even though I'm sure a lot of them probably wanted to. But if you're not recruited, if you're not prioritized by Memphis, what are you going to do at the end of the day? So there's just so much wrong with, having Alex Simmons leading this program that we've discussed ad nauseum throughout this entire season. And the results just have to be better considering the increased magnitude of women's basketball as a whole around this country and this city and the investment that Memphis is personally making into this program. Like it's above a coach who handles, things like criticism in a Bush League way that Alex Simmons did for basically all of her tenure.
I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head of the expectations are now elevated, even though when Merriweather was the coach, she exceeded those expectations. And now Simmons inherited the elevated expectations and far, far under exceeded them. And yeah, so I think both of us agree that Alex Simmons could be a good coach. It's within her wheelhouse. She's done it, right? We've seen it. We're not gonna. I don't want to take that away from her, right? But also, it didn't work out here. Her Memphis tenure, 3 years, went really, really bad, and it's hard to ask for more than 3 years. Although Alex Simmons went Kobe Bryant mode and said only Alex Simmons wants to be in Memphis, and I think that's just, she said Memphis is not a place that many people want to stay, but Alex Simmons does. What is she trying to do there, Roman? What do we gain out of the bashing the city in order to make yourself look better? And I think that just goes to the level of lack of accountability. And that's just what it is Memphis is the problem. I'm not the problem. These players are the problem. Because Roman, you talked to her at conference media days before this season started. She said last year, the players I recruited were the problem. We weren't the problem. And she said, this year, we're going to recruit players that fit. But last year, she said, last year, they went for the most talented. I'm paraphrasing, of course. But she said last year, they went for the most talented players. This year, they're going to go for the best fit players. And she put the blame on the players. And at the end of her tenure, she decided to put the blame on the city. She kept it kind of vague. She said, Memphis is not a place that many people want to stay. She could be talking about the city itself. She could be talking about the sports scene. She could be talking about the women's basketball team. I don't know. But it's blame shifting. And I get it. That's human nature, especially after failures and unsuccesses. But for her sake, hopefully it's something she'll learn from. And I wouldn't be surprised if she landed on her feet somewhere. Maybe she'll go back to Gardner-Webb. I know they're struggling right now, and she's probably the best or maybe one of the best coaches in the teams. I think they've only had a women's basketball program for a couple decades now, but she will end up being a successful basketball coach if she wants to be. It's just going to take a lot of lessons.
Yeah, no. And the whole bashing the city thing, it's actually not the first time she's made a comment like that. Another portion of my conversation with her back in October that went kind of by the wayside because, things just do at the time is, she mentioned for a second that it's difficult recruiting players to Memphis, female players to Memphis specifically, because of, the reputation and I guess the, just the general feeling of crime, the perception, if you will. She alluded that makes it more difficult to specifically recruit female players to the city. So it's not, it wasn't necessarily the first time she's made a comment like that about Memphis. And when you connect that to, she's a former Vol and things like that, comments like that, even with the best of possible intentions, they're just going to come off the wrong way from someone like her with her background. That's just the reality of the situation. I mean, they'd probably look bad with practically anybody, but especially with her background specifically, and the fact that she hasn't won, that she has, failed in almost every way. Throughout her tenure, the record, the winning percentage got worse every single season. It's just not smart comments to make. Like you said, they're tone deaf. They're disrespectful towards the program and the city, and they weren't why she got fired. But I think it's quite ironic that that she was fired. Basically immediately following those comments.
It is funny.
I do think it's quite ironic there.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'll let you get to your bit first.
Oh, it just quickly, it's funny. We have been talking about Alex Simmons being fired for 20 minutes, and you summed it up really well. Is all of these comments, all of this means absolutely nothing if she's winning games. She can say whatever she wants if she wins games. The next coach could say these things twice over, but if they're winning games, I think Ed Scott will be fine.
Yeah, and just to end this off real quickly, Alex Simmons' Twitter, which has 2,898 followers. She has posted on TikTok. Excuse me. Her TikTok has 2,898 followers, as she has posted since she's been fired. And her latest post is a burger bowl cooking video from she has taken a recipe from a young lady with 2.6 million followers named Avery Woods. So our influencer Alex Simmons is out here still thriving in that world, in the social media world. Alex Simmons, despite her on-court shortcomings, is still doing very well. I'm sure people are very pleased to know that.
This is really good journalism. I'm really glad you brought that up, because I actually looked at her Instagram on her Instagram story. Now, I talked about Nick's article earlier, published no less than 5 minutes after Nick's article. Alex Simmons put on her story, her Instagram story. I'm sure it's still up. It's unsettling when your passion for a place gets twisted and flipped into negativity to fit a narrative. So that's Alex Simmons pushing back against the fact that she didn't care for Memphis, which I think you hit on earlier. She probably had good intentions when she said these things. The point is she's tone deaf, and Memphians are going to see that as disrespect. So Alex Simmons probably doesn't hate Memphis like some people would make it seem. She probably enjoys the city. She probably was passionate about the team, the program. She just didn't win games. So or at least in her narrative, Alex Simmons was frustrated that negativity gets flipped into a narrative. And I'll leave it at that, Roman.
Yeah. Well, Alex Simmons and Memphis will both move on here, and we'll see how this coaching search for Memphis goes moving forward. They have hired a search firm. They're going to run a national search, so we'll see what type of candidate they hire in the coming weeks. But just to end off the show real quickly, men's basketball has been actually adding to its non-conference schedule for next year, despite the fact that the season still has yet to end. They added Texas a week or two back. That's going to be a home-and-home series beginning in Austin next season. And then they're going to be playing Dayton on a neutral site on November 29th. The Texas game is at some time in December. I don't quite remember the exact date right now. But that Texas game in Austin is going to be in December. You have Dayton on November 29th at an undetermined neutral site. And that game, Sam, is actually going to be a part of this interleague series between the American and the A10. It's going to be a doubleheader with Memphis versus Dayton, and also South Florida versus St. Louis, the two regular season champions from both leagues for this year. And it's, coming with the goal and the idea of both of these leagues, increasing, and enhancing their non-conference schedules and giving themselves better opportunities to build at-large resumes and things like that. It's obviously not as much of a concern for Memphis specifically, because they schedule their non-conference pretty difficult, as you know. Just for next season, beyond Texas and Dayton, there's still Baylor next year, Vanderbilt, Louisville. Did I say Vanderbilt already?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did. Shoot, why am I not remembering this off the top of my head? I think
you get Texas too, which is fun.
Yeah. There's Texas. I already said Texas. Okay, I need to look at this. Yeah.
I think.
Okay, so Louisville, Utah State, Texas, Vanderbilt, and Baylor. So Utah State was the team or so I was missing there. So next year's non-conference looking as difficult as ever there, and pretty interesting, interleague series that's going to be started with these two games between Memphis, Dayton, USF, St. Louis, and then it could potentially expand to more than that in 2027 and beyond there. Again, neutral site still has yet to be determined.
Yeah, I think, of course, the Texas game is fun. SEC, that's always going to be a lot of fun. But the quiet part out loud, Roman, is, of course, South Florida and Memphis are still, of course, the premier programs in this conference, playing against the two premier programs in the A10. And I think that's the bigger storyline here is teams are still seeking out to schedule Memphis, although the SEC teams have been scheduling Memphis for a multitude of reasons. But other mid-major teams are, I was about to say group of five schools, it's the football in me, but other mid-major schools are also seeking out Memphis because they still see Memphis as a premier mid-major team. So I think that's the bigger storyline, but I think we all knew that. So here we are.
Yeah. So, and again, another indication, if you have Penny Hardaway still scheduling games for next year.
Yeah.
Again, like every indication, both publicly and privately, that I've gotten is that Memphis is currently operating under the assumption that Penny Hardaway is going to be the coach next season. Doesn't necessarily mean that the final decision has been made there or that a separation is not off the table, because I mean the discussions will be had, especially if certain people in that building make their voices heard enough. But I'm just telling you, especially now that Alex Simmons has been fired, it's very, very, very likely at this point that just Penny Hardaway is just going to be the coach, regardless of what happens in this conference tournament or anything moving forward. And he will be likely leading the Tigers into this non-conference schedule here in 2026-27. But that is going to do it for this edition of On Beat with BCM. Thank you all for tuning in as always. Next week, the season will almost certainly be over at this point, but even if it's not, no NCAA tournament games until next Thursday. So we will be here live at 7:00, likely talking about the end of this Memphis men's basketball season and everything that it was, and we'll see what else comes up between now and then. But again, thank you all for tuning in. For everyone here on the Bluff City Media Network, for Sam Shoemaker, this is Roman Cleary signing out. We will see you all next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of On Beat with BCM. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to the Bluff City Media YouTube page. We'll see you back here next time.